For the longest time, I thought you were gay, Mia. I remember I did something completely idiotic.
And so that's for a long time I felt that way. And I kept it tucked in. Power is a very dangerous thing.
Hello and welcome to Critters and Cultures, the podcast where we explore the fascinating intersection of animal welfare and cultural diversity. I'm your host and veterinarian, Dr. Azalia Boyd, ready to uncover how cultural differences influence, enhance, and let's be honest, sometimes challenge the way we relate to each other and care for animals. Join us on this journey through global traditions, learning from diverse perspectives and advocating for empathy and respect in all of our interactions. This episode is made possible thanks to Maddie's Fund, championing a more inclusive and innovative and compassionate world for pets and people. So I will always say #thanks to Maddie's. And thank you to the audience for joining us on another episode of Critters and Cultures. If something resonates with you during the podcast today, please feel free to send me a direct message or our guest a direct message, or you can comment below. I am super excited. On this episode of Critters and Cultures, I have the opportunity to connect with one of my colleagues in the field of veterinary medicine, Dr. Mia Carey. Dr. Carey or Mia, I don't know what you want me, how do you want me to refer to you?
Mia, of course, please, Mia.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. So I'll give your bio. Dr. Mia Carey is a consultant, a speaker, and facilitator specializing in leadership, belonging, communication, and teamwork. Her purpose, and her beautiful kitty behind us, their purpose is activating others to thrive, and her professional experiences include leadership and educational roles at PrideVMC, which is Pride Veterinary Medical Community, AVMA, the American Veterinary Medical Association, NAVC, which is the North American Veterinary Community, Boehringer Ingelheim, and Novartis Animal Health. Dr. Carey is the CEO and change agent for Carey, aka JoyMaker Consulting, which she founded in 2019. She resides in Greensboro, North Carolina, and recognizes the Eno, Sappony, and Shakori nations on whose lands she lives and works. Dr. Carey, thank you so much for joining us on the Critters and Cultures podcast today.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd, and I'll call you Azalia if you call me Mia.
Okay, all right. I'll try to get that straight. Okay. So you and I have known each other in passing. We've crossed paths at conferences. I've attended some of your webinars. We have mutual connections in the vet space. But I'll be honest, what really caught my attention with you is your dedication to the DEI space in the field. I was so impressed. And then also just like how much you put out in your role at PrideVMC. So we'll dive into that. But that definitely, like, I've always been so inspired by you and your work and the messages that you put out. So I was like, she definitely needs to be on the Critters and Cultures podcast this season.
Thank you so much for those kind words. That is so meaningful.
Yeah, so I know you a little bit, but I'm going to let the audience get to know you a little bit too. So we always start with an icebreaker question. And are you ready for yours?
Ready.
Okay. What's something about you that most people get completely wrong?
Ooh, most people get... Oh, okay, here it is. It'll be interesting to see what you think about this. Most people assume that I'm an extrovert. Right? Would you agree with what you know of me, that I'm an extrovert? Would you think?
I would completely say that you're extroverted.
So for my husband and friend, my husband John and my friend Omar that are going to probably watch this, they're going to disagree. But I am a raging ambivert, which means some of the times, yes, I get my energy from being around people and social, and I'm a very social creature. However, an equal amount of the time, I get my energy from solitude, being alone, and not being around people. And I think most people assume I'm 100% extroverted all the time, and I'm absolutely not.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love that. And I've heard that before with other extroverts.
Yeah.
From other extroverts.
From other extroverts. I hear you. But for me, I will say, since COVID, where it really hit hard, spending so much time alone during COVID, I think it allowed my introvert side to come out more, and I actually appreciate that. So it's still something that even to you, I think is surprising, but I know in my heart of hearts that I'm an ambivert.
I love that. So ambivert. Maybe that's what a little bit of I am. I think I consider myself to be more of an extrovert, but I agree with you. I think since COVID, it's like, oh, wait a minute. I actually do need to slow down, and I do need time to self-reflect. And actually, this does also energize me in a way that maybe I wasn't allowing myself to actually be, right? And get that energy from. Well, I love that. So, okay, she's an ambivert. I love it. Okay. So I also want to pause and just kind of call out something. You, in giving me your bio, you're the first person that included in your bio a land acknowledgement. Why is it important for you to include land acknowledgement in your professional identity?
Well, to me, one, my professional and personal identity is one and the same. I'm just such a transparent person that it's all the same. And for me, it's just one, in some ways, tiny way to walk my talk, where I attempt to create, just by my conversations and who I'm with and engage with, and say hi from Louie the cat, that that everyone belongs. If I'm in a space, everyone else belongs there with me. And to me, a land acknowledge is one way to just from out the gate to make that clear to those that may be in my presence or in community with me. And so whether it's in my bio where people read it, and maybe it's educational, maybe they don't know what a land acknowledgement is and it creates curiosity, or if it's at the beginning of a presentation and, starting out with one, which I try to always do, it just from the very get-go, same way with leading with pronouns, right? It's just a way of saying, hey, I care, I want to learn more, I'm trying to be inclusive and let folks know they are welcome here. I definitely get stuff wrong all the time, but I'm doing my best, and I want everyone to feel included and know that they matter.
Yeah, that's really good. I love the fact that you said I'm doing my best and I get things wrong all the time.
Definitely.
Like all the time,
Definitely.
right? And some people are so afraid of doing the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing that they freeze and they don't do anything at all, right? So I love that you highlight that.
Exactly. And I've been there too. I've been there where it's the deer in headlights, right? But I will say the older I get, the more I'm able to make mistakes with joy because I know I'm learning. Where, 10 or 20 years ago, I didn't have that. And I'm glad I have it now.
Yeah, how do we encourage people who are younger to get that same courage and the courage really, right? Be brave about making mistakes. Because I also feel that maybe it's a veterinary community thing where we get out of vet school and we're like, we want to be, act like we have all the answers. We're afraid to ask certain questions. Maybe people perceive us a certain way because we don't know something. How do we encourage people to be more brave? Take you and I back 20 years. Right?
What would we tell ourselves?
What would we tell ourselves? Just be brave anyway?
So for me, two things come to mind. One, I think mentoring is really helpful because then when you're in a mentoring relationship, whether it's formal or informal, you actually see your mentor make mistakes. And you're like, well, if my mentor can make mistakes, I can make mistakes. So it's being around people that you can learn from. But I also do think it's just doing it, right? And start small, right? Start with the little mistakes or the little ways that you're taking risk that you could make a mistake. And then if you make a mistake, you realize like, oh, that wasn't that big of a deal. And I learned from it and I moved on. And so I do think there's something about just jumping in and giving it a shot and mentoring. I do think they go hand in hand.
Yeah, I love that mentoring. I have a small group of mentees. We meet once a month and we talk about topics like this, right? Imposter syndrome, professionalism, all of those things. And I do think it gives them a little bit more bravery when they go out into the real world. Louis is a handsome kitty. For those that are just audio only, I feel bad because you cannot see how handsome this boy is. He's climbing on Mia's chair and being fantastic.
He's also wanting a treat bad, and I ran out. And I think that's the issue.
Oh, okay. He's like, where is my treat? So going back to the land acknowledgement, right? What would you want people in our profession and beyond even to reflect on when it comes to the land that they're on and the history that it comes with it?
So I would want them, it comes back to something that you said, and it may have been before we started recording, or maybe it was just now, but I heard it in the last 15 minutes, was this self-awareness, to like stop and take time to understand your surroundings, to know that you weren't the first person here. It's actually freeing in a way, and it goes back to being able to take risk is because there are people that have come here before us that we can learn from and respect and honor. And I also think it's important when we're thinking about Indigenous people and land acknowledgement specifically that we go to the website, we look up and learn about the Indigenous people in our area, we communicate about it, but we also create action around it. So several years ago, I went to my first powwow, which was the Guilford County where I live has their American Indian Association, and they do powwows every September. And not only did I go and attend, and it was amazing, my mother-in-law and I volunteered, and we sold t-shirts at their table, and it was just so meaningful to be around these amazing human beings and learn from them. So I think that's an important piece, whether we're talking about land acknowledgments or anything else, is yes, learn and ask questions and grow, but also turn that into action too.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. I attended a powwow myself last year in Minnesota, and I remember I did something completely idiotic, I will just say, right? I made a huge mistake. It was beautiful. First of all, one, just acknowledging that the terms that we throw around, like how many times have we heard people say, oh, it's a powwow, as they refer to a party, right? Or a barbecue that they're having, not realizing that a powwow is actually a cultural event that happens in Indigenous communities and how powerful, that space is. And so I don't use the word powwow anymore, which I used to, right? But I went to my first official powwow.
Yeah, I was gonna say, unless you're
real powwow. Yeah, now I went to a real powwow. And there was 2 rows in the front of, the chairs were kind of all lined up around the center, which was kind of like the stage, right? And there's 2 lines in the front where no one is sitting. And guess who decided that she wanted to be right up front, sitting in the front because she wanted to see all the things and learn everything. And I was kindly, after I sat down, was kindly told that I needed to to step up several rows back because the front is for the elders, right? And this level of respect for the elders. And I was like, oh my goodness, big mess up, big mess up. I don't know how your experience was, but it's also a really good way for other people to understand we can learn by volunteering, right? Just by volunteering. You're not, you might not ask a bunch of questions, but you might just be present. Because I think that happens too, where people are like, well, how can I learn about different cultures and different things if I don't ask questions and if I'm not invited? And well, why don't you just go and volunteer?
Yes, it's so
and just
true.
be and just
Yes.
watch, right? Anyway, so I think that's really cool. So, Mia, if someone didn't know anything about you and your story, what would you want them to understand first about your identity and the culture that has shaped you? We are on the Critters and Cultures podcast, so we talk a lot about identity and culture and belonging. What is something that you'd want people to understand first about you?
So when I think of identity and culture, and specifically my own, and if I could only pick one thing, I would want people to know Tootie, who was my mom. And she was an amazing human being. I could talk all day about her, but I'll just leave it at this. And sadly, I lost her during COVID, so she's no longer with us physically, but she's with me every day. And she was the original lover of life. She included everyone in everything. She was extremely expansive in what she read and learned and absorbed, and she knew that play and fun belonged everywhere. And so much of who I am as a person, based obviously on genetics too, but also just how she raised me and my siblings to love life, to love people, and to always give and to learn from others. So Tootie is what I would want people to know.
I love it. So where did Tootie come from? Was that her nickname?
Tootie was her nickname from an uncle. Francis is her official name, and Tootie was what a uncle dubbed her at one point in her childhood, and it just stuck. And what's funny, so I have a mom named Tootie, an aunt from my dad's side, who's also a nun, that's a whole nother podcast, whose name is Tootsie. So I have all these like fun names.
Tootie and Tootsie. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that happens a lot in some families,
Yeah.
some more than others.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love that. And thank you for sharing that space and, holding space for your mom. And obviously she was as amazing. I have no doubt she was as amazing as you say, because you are just as amazing. So I'm sure she's proud of all of the things that you're doing. So you've worn many hats: leader, connector, advocate. What thread has carried you through all of that?
So my red thread through my work, but also my personal life, is my personal purpose. And I would encourage everyone, if they don't have a personal purpose statement, to think about creating one for themselves. But for me, and I actually really spent time coming up with it, was when I launched Cary Consulting like 6.5 years ago. And it's held true every day since then. It was true before then too. I just didn't put words to it. But it's activating others to thrive. And so if I am in a situation, or maybe there's a work contract that's coming up and they've asked me to participate, if there's a component where I am truly activating others to thrive, helping to tee them up to do their best, that's my jam. I absolutely love it. I love connecting people and really helping people to figure out how to be their best selves and share their best selves. Everything I've done, every role in every company, and now in my own organization, that's definitely my red thread.
Your personal statement, personal mission statement, is that what you called it?
I call it, so it's similar to mission. I like purpose, so personal purpose statement. And I think, Azalia, I think one of the links I sent you that we're going to put in the show notes is a link to a real short blog I wrote on how to create one. So for those that are interested, there's some resources there too.
I absolutely love that. So a personal purpose statement. And how did you come to that? How did you realize that was what you needed?
So I spent time, the whole self-awareness thing of like, well, what? And I asked myself this series of questions, including, what gets me up in the morning? At the end of a day, what will have happened in that day for me to consider it to be a successful, good day, right? And how do I want to be remembered, right? There's all these questions you can ask yourself. And I literally asked the questions, jotted down notes, and that was the red thread running through all my notes. And so then I just shortened it. And the thing is, Azalia, I know I truly can't activate others to thrive, right? That's up to them. But I can create environments and tee up resources and help people realize how awesome they are so that they, right, activate themselves to thrive. And it makes me happy and it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm doing work that matters.
We said the word resilience, right? We had a little talk. You said that you had a complicated relationship with the word resilience, and you're laughing. But I want us to go on this journey. Okay. This word resilient, we hear about it a lot for a multitude of reasons. And I don't want to give too much because I really want to get into how you feel about it. Take us on the journey with the word resilience. You said you didn't even use it for a while. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So I will say until probably a couple of years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, every time I heard that word resilience, I literally winced. Sometimes inside, sometimes you'd see it on my face. And I understood what folks were saying. And obviously there's like psychologists and researchers, people that know their stuff that were talking about. So I'm like, I'm not saying your work isn't good, but I just kept coming back to, if we would work on our workplaces and our environments and create systems and policies that were good, then we wouldn't have to constantly be encouraging people to be resilient, be resilient. It just drove me out of my mind. And so that's, for a long time, I felt that way. And I kept it tucked in because even in VetMed, we have spent a lot of time talking about it. But even when I was frustrated, it was mostly I would just be like, oh, okay. But that has evolved. I will say that has evolved.
No, you're right. So resilience is one of those words we hear, especially in caregiving professions like ours, right? In caregiving professions, in marginalized communities, we hear the word a lot, right? The Black woman needs to be resilient. The Indigenous community needs to be resilient, right? We hear about it in moments of crisis, right? We talked a little bit offline about what was going on in the political state of the world, and everyone's just like, be resilient. Almost like it's a badge of honor in a weird way, right? That ability to bend and just keep bending without breaking, to keep going no matter what. But that resilience shouldn't be so romanticized. And I think maybe that's where some of that struggle was coming in for you, right? It's not just about strength. It shouldn't have to be about strength and survival all of the time. It shouldn't have to be about people just enduring conditions that they should never have to be put in the first place, right? But what made it change for you then? So it makes you kind of clench up, you said. What's the journey? How has it evolved now? Are you using the word now? Have you reclaimed the word resilient?
I have, and I now, it's like I get it. And probably if there's any resilience researchers that are listening to this, they're like, oh, she finally got it, yay. So for me, I still believe in we have to figure out the root causes in workplaces that are toxic, right? So nothing has changed there. And this is going to be so obvious to you, Azalia, and to our listeners, but for me, it was an epiphany. Where just one day, I know, again, this was several years ago, it's like, okay, wait, even in the most wonderful workplace with a fabulous culture and wonderful policies and people and systems and structures, there's going to be bumps in the road, right? There's always, it's life, right? Change is constant. It's the only thing that is consistent is change. And sometimes that change is going to not be good. And there's going to be bumps in the road. So while we can't control those bumps all the time for what's coming, we can control our own words, our actions, our reactions. And because we never know when we're going to get hit with something, that in order to be prepared for that, resiliency is actually a really good thing, right? So that and I will say right now in the world, like we don't even have a choice, we have to be resilient. But even on the good days, something is going to happen. And, going to that definition of it, I love that idea of it's the ability to bounce, right? It's not saying you're always 100% on your game and ready for anything. It just means, man, if I get hit with something, I'm going to bounce. I'm going to bounce because I know that this is tough, but this too shall pass. I'm going to get through it and things are going to be better on the other side of it. And I'll share one more definition that I love. You probably know Simon Sinek, all his work around why, and this is a really good one, is it's the ability to go into the darkness, whatever that is on a given day, and to come out stronger. And to me, once I started, I'm like, oh yeah, these are things I do believe in. And I just have a very different relationship with resiliency now. I'm all in on resiliency.
That's a huge change. Right?
It is.
That's a huge change. And I don't mean to giggle or chuckle so hard, but that is a huge change. And that's with anything. Like when you're going through a journey of anything, right? You don't think about the word, the phrase, the policy, the system, whatever, the same as you did before, right? But I like the fact, and I did go back and read one of your blogs and you said, bounce, baby, bounce, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's like bounce back, right? We have to be able to, and I love the way Simon also put it, right? Being able to come out stronger. Yes, resilience is powerful. And I agree. All the researchers are like, okay, they get it. It does speak to that courage. It speaks to that adaptability. But I think where you were originally coming from is being careful not to use it as a reason to ignore systems, work environments that demand you to be resilient, right? If someone is constantly saying, you guys need to be resilient, we really need to be asking why? Why do they constantly have to be resilient?
That why word is appropriate in so many different situations, right?
Why? Why are we doing this? Yes. Let me ask you this. What do you think leaders get wrong about resilience?
It depends, right? It's so situational, right? I think some leaders get it right, some leaders don't. It depends on the day of the week and the situation they're dealing with. I think the leaders that listen probably get it right because they're really listening to what's going on with their people and their teams, and obviously not just their managers, but every single person in the organization. So I think even though it's very situational, I would say across the board, it's leaders that really listen and care about their people. They're getting resilience right.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Well, thank you for sharing that. So we're going to segue a little bit. You are active in Pride VMC, okay? Formerly known as the Lesbian and Gay Veterinary Medical Association. Is that right?
Yep, LGBTQ.
Okay. And I do think it's a good segue because we move from that resilience, which is we admire your strength, you need to be strong, to actually creating spaces that don't really require people to have to fight when they're within these spaces, right? You recently stepped down from your role as CEO of Pride VMC. We're going to insert that clip here.
Hi everyone, Mia Carey here, pronouns she, hers, and I am very excited to welcome Stephanie Goss as the new CEO of the Pride Veterinary Medical Community. As many of you know, this was a very challenging decision for me to step down, and yet I know it is 100% the right decision, and I am thrilled with Stephanie in the new leadership role. And so thank you so much to all of the Pride VMC members, our board of directors, our student leaders, and our fabulous partners for all of your support. Thank you for supporting me in the role for the last several years. And I look forward to many more fun times together as I continue on as a very active Pride VMC member. So again, thank you to everyone and a massive congratulations to Stephanie. I am thrilled with this evolution. I hope you are all doing well, staying safe, and I look forward to seeing you all soon at the next Pride VMC event. Take care, everybody.
So this episode of Critters and Cultures is brought to you by Maddie's Fund, a family foundation that believes in a world where every pet has a loving home and every family has the support they need to stay together. Inspired by a beloved miniature schnauzer named Maddie, the fund is transforming animal welfare through innovation, through education and equity. Whether it's funding groundbreaking foster programs, supporting community collaboration, grants, or offering free online learning for animal care professionals, Maddie's Fund is investing in the people and the ideas that move us forward. They also believe that inclusion matters because real change happens when we uplift every voice in this work. So learn more, get involved, or start learning today at maddiesfund.org. That's MADDIESFUND.org. And I will always say #thanks to Maddie's. I want to jump back in, Mia, to Pride VMC, but I also know that we're going to talk about VetMed Interconnected. And I do think Maddie's Fund actually was not on the list, but certainly should be on the list of organizations that are connected within the vet industry. One, because I think sometimes veterinary medicine kind of stands over here and animal welfare stands over here, two different kind of lanes. But I would love, like in an ideal world for me, bridging that gap between animal welfare and veterinary medicine and collaborating across where animal related organizations would be beautiful. So I would encourage that.
I love that. And can I also give a shout out to Maddie's Fund, because I also think very highly of their work. So yay, Matt.
Okay, wonderful. Yes. Well, good. So let's talk about Pride VMC. Tell us about the organization and your previous role in the organization. Why was it started? What was it all about?
Yeah, so Pride VMC, in a various names, right, has been around for, believe it or not, 32 years.
Wow.
So originally founded in 1993, it's a 501c3 nonprofit. We mentioned LGVMA as one of the names. It was I'm Glad before that. Nice. About 7 years ago, rebranded to Pride VMC to be more inclusive, right? Not just the L's and the G's, but the entire community is part of it. And while the name has changed over all those years, the mission and purpose has not varied at all, and that is to create a better world for the LGBTQ plus veterinary community. That has remained constant. And I want to give a shout out to Dr. Ken Gorsica, who's one of the original founders of Pride VMC in one of its previous iteration of names. And he's one of many amazing humans that have made this organization so strong and so important.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And what was your role as CEO of Pride VMC?
It was funny because when I worked for the AVMA, I was the point of contact for Pride VMC. So I spent a lot of time with them. I knew the board. I'd actually, in my role at NAVC, helped them with strategic planning. I'd been a member forever as an ally, so I knew the organization very, very well. And when I decided to launch out on my own, one of the first organizations I contacted was Pride VMC, because I have a lot of association management experience. And I just said, hey, I don't know where you are in your leadership transition in terms of the staff, but if you ever need help, I've started my own business. And fast forward, they became my second client and then stayed until recently. And so serving as their CEO has been really one of the joys of my career, to be a staff lead, a part of an organization that I'm a member of, that I love, that I respect so much, has been pure joy. So, over that time, with the help of the other board members, and now we have another staff member, I focused a lot of my energy while still trying to be strategic, but also very tactical in grounding the organization in really solid infrastructure and stability. So while hopefully, the folks on the outside saw both from me, that I was helping strategic and thinking of the long-term version, we also really shored up the basic foundations of the organization so that no matter who is in the staff role, they'll continue strong into the future.
So important to have that staff role, that original, structure. So that, and that's what makes really good leaders, is that we are going to go on, right? We're going to pass. But when we leave, what's left behind? How is the organization going to continue to function? And the members also, right? Are they going to fall apart without you? And so I think that is really, really awesome and really amazing attribute of a great leader. You recently stepped down from your role as CEO. You were CEO for how long?
About almost 6 years, a little more than 5.5 years.
Yeah, so that's a really good time. So you've gotten, the organization through the really scary times of the pandemic. We happen to be actually filming this episode during Pride Month, right?
Yay, happy Pride.
Yay, we're so excited. I wish it could actually air during Pride Month, but it will air. Why did you decide to step down from your role?
So as you can imagine from what I just described, I love that role as CEO. And resigning as CEO was one of the most challenging decisions of my entire career. And yet, once I made it, I 100% knew it was the right thing to do. It took a while for the board to understand the rationale, but bottom line is, one, what I just shared with you. I knew that the infrastructure was ready, that if I stepped back, someone else could come in with new ideas, fresh ideas, and really take it to the next level. And with everything going on in the world right now, this year, and let me tell you how it actually happened. I was watching, do you remember Cory Booker's 25 Hours, right? So I was kind of down right before, the day before that. And I just happened to find that. And I watched every minute of it. I stayed up through the night, and I was so inspired and educated. I learned so much during that time that at the end of that, I'm like, well, okay, this is great. I know I always want to be part of the solution. I'm trying to do my best. What could I really do now with what I have, the resources I have, to be part of the solution? And as I started thinking about Pride VMC and how much I love that, I have a lot of different clients. They are my favorite client. But I was like, this is it. They're strong enough now that I could step back. A new person, ideally someone that's a member of the queer community, in my opinion, would step in as CEO. Now, I had no problem being an ally while I was the leader because we were working on things. But now that it's stable, and with everything going on in the world, I felt like the staff voice needed to be one of someone that's from the queer community. And the other thing that does is take the pressure off the board members, right? We're constantly getting requests for speaking, and so it's always the board members that are face of the organization, which it should be, but they're very busy. They have full schedules every day. So that was another thing in my mind. It's like, man, if you had the CEO that was a member of the queer community, they could take some of that pressure off of the board, just like Kelly Robinson does with the Human Rights Campaign. So it was those things, but the main thing was, all right, as an ally, and I do think, okay, allies that are listening to this,
listen hard, lean in, turn your values up.
Yeah. Lean in. Because here's the thing, I don't want them to hear from what I just shared that, oh, we need to step back. There are some things we do need to step back to create space for other voices, but right now we need to double down on our efforts. But that doesn't mean always being the face or the voice. That means stepping back, creating space, and supporting in other ways that aren't so much on the front. Well, it is on the front lines, don't get me wrong, but you know what I mean. It's creating space for others to have the seat at the table.
Yeah, listen, I commend that 100%. I actually spoke with someone who does some work in Indigenous communities, and he has an organization, or they have an organization, I should say. I remember asking why wasn't the organization being led or represented by Indigenous people, and they mentioned, once I think they're ready, that's when I will kind of remove myself, and that becomes a challenge in itself too. Is it up to us as allies to determine when another group is ready? Who determines that? I think that we can get into the weeds on that, but ultimately what you just shared, of course, I've always been a fan of yours. This has deepened my respect for you, to be completely honest, because you helped build space, and then in such a graceful and intentional way, you stepped down from the role of CEO. And I know that it was, when we spoke about it, you said it was a very emotional decision for you. Like you said, you created room for someone who does identify with the queer community to lead, and that is commendable. Not because it's rare, because it is rare, but because it's harder to do. People do not give up areas of power that easy. Power is not easy to pass on, and yet you modeled it. You modeled what it looked like to lead with integrity, to lead with alignment. You said you walk when you talk, And so I do think that it's commendable, and I'm glad we told all the allies to turn up the volume, because this is actually what it looks like. And you're right. It doesn't mean that you don't have to still lead. It can mean that you're creating space and removing yourself so that other faces and other voices can be heard. Why do you think power is not easy to pass on?
Well, we get used to it, right? We get used to it. And again, we don't even sometimes realize how much we're getting from it. It can be fun to be the one. And it's funny because most people think I do love presenting. I present a ton. But I love being behind the scenes. But once you're in that spotlight and you're getting that attention, right? And that power, then it can drive you. So I think we get wrapped up in it and we don't stop to think about, wait a minute, am I even doing the things I want to be doing? Or am I just doing it because I've always been doing it, right? So I think power is a very dangerous thing. Very dangerous. And if we, back to your very first comments to me today, Azalia, is just put a little bit of time in our days to stop and think and be self-aware, we'll realize that most of the time we feel so much better when we're teeing up that power to others, when we actually have it to share.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I want to segue. I know we're closing here in a little bit. I want to talk about affinity groups, okay? I went on your website. If you guys haven't gone to Dr. Mia Carey's website, caryconsulting.com, it will be in the show notes, but there was a link to affinity groups, right? These are spaces where people connect through shared identity, culture, lived experiences. They exist primarily because sometimes, especially in professions like VetMed, people do need spaces to go where they don't have to carry the extra weight of explaining themselves, right? They can just be, they can just breathe, they can just reflect, they can just feel seen, right? So in VetMed, I'm just going to name out a few of the groups: Association of Asian Veterinary Medical Professionals, right? Black DVM Network, Black Doctor of Veterinary Medicine Network, the Multicultural Veterinary Medical Association. I saw the American Association of Veterinarians of Indian Origin. And I do hear the controversy sometimes about, oh, these groups are intended to create separation, but they're not. And similar to PrideVMC, right? They're about safety, they're about support, they're about building community within a field where many have felt isolated for a very long time. So I want to just touch base on VetMed Interconnected. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so it's a fabulous yet very informal gathering of any group that identifies as a VetMed affinity group. Anyone can join. And it started in 2019, and PrideVMC kicked it off only in that we were like, hey, we're all doing similar work. We should get together, right? Let's get together. Let's talk. And it was originally monthly, and it was just the affinity orgs. And it was so powerful. We shared ideas. We supported each other. We actually did a voting campaign together, all kinds of good stuff. And it was awesome for several years. And then the idea was, well, let's bring in umbrella groups because they're asking the affinity orgs all these questions. Let's just bring them to some of the meetings so they can hear what we're talking about. So at that point, and this was probably 2 years later, we started inviting. And so AVMA, AAVMC, NAVTA, AVMA, so vet techs, like all the different affinity or umbrella organizations now participate in the meetings too. And while everybody has an opportunity to share updates that are related to each other's work, it's the affinity groups go first, right? They share what they want to share, they ask their questions, and then the umbrella orgs are on there primarily to listen, learn, but also to share and ask questions. And so the idea is to create a safe, brave space where representatives of these organizations can come together, be in community, and learn from each other and support each other. And it has been, again, I talk about supporting Pride VMC as being a joy of my career. Being part of those meetings, same thing. Just so much that I've learned. And, obviously some of the conversations can be very heavy, but it keeps it real. It's important. And it's incredibly inspiring just by, all the things that are happening and people are doing to tap into resilience and stay strong and focus and continue the good work in spite of everything that's happening in the world. So, and again, it's not a formal organization. They don't have a logo. It's just VetMed interconnected, and it's fabulous. And to your point, the affinity groups, man, if anyone's watching and listening and has never engaged with any of the affinity groups, please do. Go to their website, go attend their events. Many of them have open public events. Some of them allow allies as members. Please join, donate, engage, and learn from these affinity orgs.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that. Typically what I will see as Black women, like most of the time, people that will be attracted to you that feel like they're on the outside or somebody that they see their reflection in you. So I go to conferences sometimes and I look at, Black females and they're just looking at me like, is there a group? Is there a belonging? Can we be friends? You know what I mean? It actually happens. It's spoken when we look at each other in the eyes, right? And I know what their needs are. I think it is so important to have that community of belonging and for it to go, I love the term interconnected because there's so much strength that we can get from working together. I also love collaboration over competition, right? So we're not all competing, we're working together, collaborating, sharing ideas, and there's probably so many crossovers. And like you said, where we are politically right now, DEI is under attack in so many places, both openly and quietly. What are you noticing in people around you and maybe even in yourself?
So I think, well, I know from the people that I've talked to, but I think even the people that I haven't talked to, is that everybody is feeling heavy, right? At some point during the day, they're heavy, they're frustrated, and even though we may not be talking about it in every business meeting, people are dealing with a lot. They're scared, confused, disillusioned. We are not okay. This is not normal times. And I hope everyone, especially those in leadership positions, realize that. And if you think, I'm just going to go about business as usual today, that your team members are not okay, and you need to be there for them.
How do you do that? Because your identity is Caucasian, right?
Yep.
Caucasian female, and a lot of the leaders in VetMed and animal welfare are Caucasian females. What would you tell Caucasian females? For the longest time, I thought you were gay, Mia, right? We talked about that.
I have a story about that. I'll tell you sometime.
What do you mean? We talk about it a lot. Check on your team members. What does that actually mean? And how do we encourage people to keep pushing forward without burning out, right? I don't know if that ties back to the word resilience, but how do you check on your teams?
So I think to check on the teams, it's about building trust, right? If you haven't built trust, you're not going to be able to check because no one's going to be open to you because they don't trust you. So finding ways, and the best way we can build trust is through shared experiences. So we have our typical workday experiences, which those are still shared experiences, but it's getting to know our team members on a personal level, letting them bring their authentic selves to work in a very safe way and embracing that and celebrating that. But I think the core, there's a lot of different things we could say here, but building trust. And if you don't have trust of your team members, they're not going to be safe, they're not going to open up, and they're probably not going to stay on your team very long.
Yeah. And that could be a whole another episode, right? On trust building, right? Thank you for sharing that. The work is important. The work that you're doing is important. The work that the affinity groups and VetMed Interconnected are doing is all important. Is there a moment with an animal, maybe a patient, a personal pet, or a story that reminds you why this work still matters, even when the world feels very heavy?
What first thing comes to me, because it's been so long since I've been in clinical practice, although I keep my license up just in case. But for me, it's my pets, right? It's how I feel, no matter how hard the day is, whether I'm traveling for work or I'm here in my home office, if I've had a heavy day, and there's Louie, who some of you met earlier, or Leo, or our two dogs, we take care of our mother-in-law's dogs, that human-animal bond and that unconditional love we get from our pets, and our animals of all kind, right? Not just pets, is so grounding, and literally grounding. I'll find myself on the floor with the cats, rolling around, or out on a walk with the dogs, and it centers me. And to me, that's the red thread through veterinary profession, right? Is that human-animal bond, and how important that is to us as the caregivers, as veterinarians, vet techs, practice managers, but also as pet owners. It's a beautiful thing, and I'm so proud to be a part of a profession that honors that.
I agree with you. I love being in this profession. I absolutely love what I do. I happen to still be practicing, and I love that. Before we close, I ask each guest to leave a piece of cultural relevance, something meaningful from your life, identity, or heritage that someone out there might carry with them. And I think I know what yours is, but tell me something that you would like to offer as a cultural gift to our listeners and to whoever comes next on this journey.
What I want to share, and you'll have to tell me if this is what you're looking for or not, and it's okay if you'd like me to, but what comes to mind with this, and it starts, how we started this was Tootie and my mom and how I was raised. It really only struck true to me probably in the last 10 years, is this ability that we can care so much about each other, our work, our animals, the community, and yet we don't have to carry all of the burdens as well, right? We can care but not carry, and that can help us move forward. And so we can care again the day after and the day after and the day after. So that's what I would leave with, is care, but don't always carry.
I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for leaving us with that. And thank you for joining the Critters and Cultures podcast, Mia. This conversation was exactly everything that I needed today. And so I deeply, deeply appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you, Azalia. It was an honor to be here in the space with you, and I thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. And to our guests, thank you for joining us on the Critters and Cultures podcast, where we explore the deep connections between humans, animals, and the world around us. Remember, every person has a story, every creature has a story, and every culture has its wisdom. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep discovering the wonders of our shared world. Thank you for joining us.